Hey crew, this is a little backpacking trip, 3-day thing we did up in Hell's Canyon coming in from the Imnaha River this last weekend. What you're seeing here, actually I took this video at the end coming out, but this is the road we took coming in and out. You can see it coming from both ways. I think I've took video, this is the third time I've been up here, so I think I've taken video of this before, you've seen it. But yeah, it's a pretty rugged road. So this is the trailhead. Actually, I'm across the river from the trailhead here, but so you come in and you park up here, and then hike in about 5 miles just down the Imnaha River, which is really beautiful. It's a narrow little canyon, and Friday was just a beautiful day. It was sunny and warm. It was funny because it was cold. It was like 45 degrees up in Joseph. And we got down here, and I swear it had to be in the mid 60s. It was really lovely walking in. And it's pretty flat, and my pack's always light, so it's just a fun time coming in there. And I got a bit of the head start on Scott. Scott's he's got some problem with his muscles in his left shoulder, and I don't know if I told you this, but he got hit by a car last summer and broke his collarbone when he was on his bike. And so I think it's some leftover ancillary thing from that. So he's kind of slowed down a little bit, which is good because I can almost keep up with him now. But anyway, I left in front of him and had a nice little walk first thing by myself for about 2.5 miles before he caught up with me. And as you can see, the flowers were out, the butterflies were out. It was just lovely. And there were no dogs. Oh, there are the dogs. Actually, I do like his dogs, but I like to complain about them as well because they're a pain in the butt, as you'll see later in the video. There'd been a couple of landslides over the winter.
Now's probably the time I should be using the pole, huh?
So we had to pick our way through a couple of those little landslides. But I think as you've seen before, this trail just kind of comes down and then it all of a sudden pops out on the Snake River right at the confluence. Here we are in the Snake. And there's a nice little campground, maybe, I don't know, an eighth of a mile, quarter of a mile down the river here. And in this time, there's a whole bunch of guys who do this, or folks, men and women, who do this little trip every spring in early April. A lot of them work for the state or Forest Service. So there were about a dozen of us on this trip, and it was just fun. A lot of really good folks, fun people, and a number of people who I knew previously, kind of peripherally, and some more people that I'd never met before. So we had a good time. So Scott and I got here, and Scott immediately wanted to climb up the side of the canyon here, and he likes to go straight up, and it is just a bugger of a climb. Let me tell you, it was. I forget. This is, I think, the third time I've done it with him, and it was just tough. This is kind of cool, though, because when you're on the side, this is a pretty good shot. It shows you how steep it is. You're climbing up this side, and it's crazy that you see these shells up there.
Just so far down
it's
there,
just
you can't
fascinating.
see my shadow.
So anyway, you get up to the top here, and Scott says there's a cairn kind of over at the point overlooking the campground. And Scott's actually scattered some of his dad's ashes there, so he goes to visit that, which is nice.
There's no way we could keep up with those guys.
That's why we use culture. We use intelligence. We're
Our
smarter than...
cities are better than yours. Goddamn hound dogs. Smells clean. That hurts laughing.
See what happens when you roll in cow shit, Truman?
Stupid goddamn dog. It'd be one thing if this is the first time this has happened, but hey, crew, you're looking pretty good. Any cow crap on him, Dan?
I don't see any. And that's why I don't have a dog. So we had decided to come down the long way rather than go back down the steep way, partially because of Scott's shoulder. Ended up being a pretty nice walk, and as you can see, the dogs got into some problem, and we saw some elk. So it was a good time. We got back to camp, set up for the night.
We're going Hawaii time.
We're going to Hawaii on Tuesday.
Are you?
Oh, really?
Where are you going? Kona? But if you didn't have side A, which was not there when we lived there, I mean, they would roll up the sidewalks like 8 o'clock.
Yeah, but before that it was like...
So it rained a little bit during the night, but I think it was like early morning, like 4:30, 5 o'clock it rained for a bit, drizzled. But as you can see, it was sunny first thing in the morning. We knew it was supposed to rain today, but Scott, myself, a guy named Chris, actually, who you see right there, and Andrew, the guy in the red shirt, decided to go for a little hike over to a place called Cherry Creek, which I'd never been before. I think Andrew had been there before, but none of the rest of us had. So we started out, and it was really warm. We kind of stripped down to t-shirts, and I was just wearing shorts. And we got a little ways into it, and about a mile into it, and then the rain started. And it just poured and poured and was windy, basically for, I don't know, 2.5, 3 hours. It was pretty miserable up there. We were walking through slush on the side of the hill, and we were hoping to see more elk. We didn't. This is actually Cherry Creek, so we actually got basically to the ridge looking down on Cherry Creek, and Scott was like, all right, who wants to go on? And the other three of us said, I think we're ready to go back. So we started going back, and as we're going, Scott was, we'd stop occasionally, and Scott was like, I can't stop, I'm too cold, we need to keep walking. And it turns out that jacket that Scott was wearing, here actually you can see the rain's let up here again. This is about 7 miles into it, but yeah, it turns out Scott was soaked to the skin, not surprisingly, with that jacket, and he was suffering a bit. So we actually stopped and talked about lighting a fire. There's a little shelter there, but it had a dead rat in it and various other things. So we decided against it and pushed on back to our tents. And once we got there, you'll see what happened.
You have some...
Don't worry, I'm not taking pictures of you with your broken tent, Scott.
fixed? Kind of.
I was just glad my tent was still there. Turning around, I started getting knocked down by the wind. I was up on top of that, that high spot on the trail right at the beginning there. I was up top of that when those wind hit me.
Tell me about the purple jacket.
I've had this purple jacket since
19.
like 1993, I think. Yeah, seen many iterations, many repairs, and finally, it's got a new hole. Someone have any tape?
Nail in there.
Oh yeah.
Here.
Needless to say, it leaks a little, so it's got to get replaced. I'm tired of being pre-hypothermic.
So, why did you bring that jacket on this trip, Scott?
Why?
Yeah.
It's a Snake River tradition. I mean, why bring dogs to the Snake River?
So why are you going to replace it now, after all this tradition?
Because I almost got a hypothermia a couple hours ago. Yeah, so we got back and we found that there'd been like 40, 50 mile an hour gusts of wind, and it had kind of taken down all the tents and actually ripped a hole in Scott's. And so he was trying to fix it, and all of a sudden I realized that he wasn't talking at all, and he was behaving a little oddly, and so we got him to strip off his wet clothes and put on some warm stuff. But I've never kind of seen him shut down like that before. It was fascinating. But in the end, it was all good. We lit a fire, and we just kind of settled in for the rest of the evening, and the rain let up. We were able to get pretty much dry for the night. So had another good night's sleep. Actually, I got a new sleep pad, which was really great. I slept really well both nights. It was very comfortable. And
No.
got up and packed up and headed out. Scott was kind of in a hurry to get back, which I was perfectly happy with because we're leaving in a couple days anyway, and I have stuff to do. So we hiked out, pretty
The
uneventful.
last part of video for this trip.
Got back to the car, drove back, made it back to Pendleton by a little after 5. It was a great weekend. Good time, good people. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.